So my name is Pat Mastors, and I am the founder of an organization called the Patients View Institute. I don't know that I can tell you about Patients View Institute without telling you why we created it. Like many of us, I never anticipated having anything to do with healthcare. I was a healthy person. I had a lovely family. My only association with hospitals is that I had 3 healthy children, no complications. And then my dad, who lived right nearby me, was at the time 75 years old, a very healthy man. Mowed his lawn the day before, and he fell down the stairs at home, and it turns out he fractured a vertebra in his neck. Doctors were actually amazed he was still walking around, and he entered the hospital for surgery on his neck. That went very well, and then in the post-op step-down room in the hospital, he developed the problem, which we later learned was a C. diff infection, which is a very serious infection in the hospital. You can get this infection, and within a matter of a day or two, it can literally rupture your intestines, and that's what happened to my dad. So this hospitalization that's supposed to take a week to 10 days ended up taking most of the next 6 months. Complications, he got to go home for a short time. He came back to the hospital for a repair on the surgery that he'd had, and one day I was talking to him about his desire to go home and drive his car again, and that night I got a call from the nurse that she checked on my dad in the middle of the night, and he was not breathing. And I learned later that that's part of a disease process with this infection, that it can recur, and he died of sepsis. And that left me in a place of wondering, like, gee, if I, as a fairly educated, I was a medical reporter for part of the time before that, broadcast journalist, medical reporter, and I had no idea about this, and I wondered, what does everybody else do? What do they do when they don't have any clue what's going on with their medical care? And so I started an informational website to help people understand what the risks were, and I started from there. Long-winded way to say that kind of galvanized me, as with many patient advocates. We don't expect that we'll go to this place and feel so passionate about helping other families. But something happens when you lose somebody you love. You feel, what do I do with that? You know, what can I give and what can I do that will make it better for other people? So we founded the Patients View Institute, me and a colleague, because we found that in all the conferences and summits and policy work that we were doing, that the patient voice was, with all the best intentions of people that brought us there, it's sort of like we're a nice thing to have, kind of like you need it there, but is it robust? Is it meaningful? Is it going to change the dynamic? And we found that there was no infrastructure for patients, really. So we decided to create it. And so PVI set out to gather the stories and the perspectives of patients, which we did, offering them the opportunity to tell the story any way they wanted to, by voicemail, email, snail mail, video, phone call, all the ways they wanted to do it, and that we would do the work on the back end to find the meaning within that, to find the commonalities, the trends, the messaging from patients overwhelmingly about what they wanted people to know about them. And that's what we've done. Gathered over 1,200 stories. And that's where we are today, is trying to infuse this perspective as best we can into policy, into practice, into education. The biggest message of all of it is that we can't expect perfection, and nobody does. We need to acknowledge that clinicians make mistakes because we're human. But it's what you do with this setback that makes the difference to patients.
Upstairs in the ballroom.
The message is, don't breach my trust. I come to you with trust that you'll help me and heal me. And if something goes wrong and you don't answer my call and I get a runaround from a a network of phone trees and departments and one-off, do this, do that, do that. It's so disheartening because all we want to do is to feel that we matter. And that's kind of what we got from all those stories. So that's a big passion point for me, is to help infuse that lesson and that opportunity into the bigger ecosystem of healthcare. I am here at Plaintree because early on in my research, I'll never forget, I was talking to a nurse friend of mine, and she does consulting around the country. She does consulting for some of the most progressive hospital systems in the country. And I mentioned that in my research I'd come across Plaintree, and she said, "Oh my God, Pat, Plaintree, they are the model. They have done it for, at that time it was 30 years. They got it. They know that they bring this human being tenderly and appropriately and their family into this scary process. And they've kind of deconstructed what has to happen along the journey to make that person feel important, that they matter." I mean, the whole concept was designed by a patient. At this point, it's 40 years ago. So I'm here at Plaintree, which over the years has attracted acolytes, a tribe around the idea of the simplest things in healthcare, which is that how we're treated as human beings matters most. And I think this conference is a way to develop some tools and strategies and language around how to take that back to organizations, to elevate what you're doing a step closer to this ideal model that was first designed 40 years ago. My goals have evolved to a point where I just feel that all my time and energies need to focus on what is going to move the dial. So many wonderful people working on these things. But here we are, there's this group of people very motivated. There's also this time of huge disruption in healthcare where people that have not, for whatever reason, been able to, or had opportunity to, or had permission to get where they want to be. There are disruptive models happening all around us. There are these blockbuster companies that are bringing their consumer-centric model and their big data into this dynamic. And so taking a step back and seeing the whole landscape, my litmus test personally is I got 3 kids, I have a grandchild coming, and I want this system to be good for them. I want them to never have the uncertainty, the questions, the disconnectedness that I've experienced with people I love. And I say this with huge respect for clinicians have saved at earlier times in my life, my mom, my brother, and my daughter. So I just want good people that really care to start opening new conversations, to be open to new models, to not be afraid and not be threatened, and to be aggressive and curious. What can I learn from other industries? What can I learn from colleagues that I don't normally see in my work flow? And because I know that when we find the best among us and work together, those collisions are going to produce the changes that we need. And I mean, here at Plaintree is one of those places where that happens. So I, after all this time, am really optimistic. Things are going to change anyway. Why don't we, all of us who care deeply and have spent years trying to affect change, why don't we be open to what can we learn from this new time, this new dimension, and how can we be of service to furthering our collective goals, to make healthcare be functional, to make experiences be good, to make people feel seen and listened to ensure that they know their treatment options and are informed and feel okay to say, I appreciate you want to cure me or fix me, but maybe my goals are to be present with my family for this time I have left. We have so many important conversations to have. starting with what the patient wants should be job one. And that's a reframing of so much of what we're teaching to clinicians. So, but I have confidence and faith that there's so many good people working on this, that it's an exciting time, and I look forward to seeing what the next chapters bring us. From a policy perspective, probably the biggest thing in the way is economics. Nothing really changes in politics, in policy, policy encompasses every human dynamic there is. So two things impact that, and one feeds into the other. Pressure from constituents in the policy world equates to economics, because essentially our Congress members feel the pressure from constituents or from lobbying groups, and so it's their survival politically that's at stake. So to whatever extent any of us, and this is where we all have power, we have power in the voting booth. And in the policy world, it's so interesting because you almost don't even know you need to have your voice and act on your voice until a health crisis comes crashing down on you, right? Because until my dad got sick, everything was good. I have to say, I was blissfully unaware of the challenges people face. I didn't have, I don't live with a debilitating or chronic disease. I don't live with an addiction, or I don't live without family. I don't live in some of the places that some among us live with. But at the same time, I see that we are only as good as a society as we treat those people. It's so easy to dismiss the marginalized, the disenfranchised, the marginalized populations. It's so easy to say, well, you know what, tell them to do this or do that. And it's so dismissive and not recognizing that it's like saying, I don't care about paying for education, I don't have kids in school. It's crazy that we don't try to create a system and a framework that our children will benefit from, right? So maybe you're lucky and you don't feel the need right now, or you think, okay, I'm all set, I've got money in the bank and I can deal with a crisis. Okay, what about your children? What about your grandchildren? That is the human investment that we're all asked to think about, whether it's healthcare, education, thriving economically. When we have a society where there are haves and have-nots, we're going to pay the price. So you can pay now or you can pay later. And in the policy world, things move slowly. They move like molasses in January. The only thing that hastens that pace is finding the levers. The levers could be a groundswell of public opinion, and we have an opportunity now with social media and communities. We're seeing that happen in some ways, to bring pressure to bear. That could make a huge change. Money moves mountains. We don't have a lot of money, but collectively that pressure equates to, I could get fired from my job if I don't address this need. So my message to people would be, never discount what you as one human being, I don't care what your stressors, if you're 18 or older, you can vote. If you're 18 or older, you can sign a petition. You can go on Facebook and you can align yourself with a community that is passionate already for things you care about. And so my goal, which it's nothing unique, it's very common. It's that I want my time doing this work to move that dial. I want people to trust that when their kid gets sick, their mom or dad gets sick, which happens sooner or later, it comes home to roost. Whether you are the healthiest, most happy-go-lucky person in the world or not, it will come home. And I want you to feel, wow, thank God that system was, thank God that person was there. Thank God that help was there. And in a way so we're here at Plane Tree right now, and I wish the whole world knew about Plane Tree. because they figured out so much of this. They are an ally and a big member of this tribe of people that want you and your family, anybody you love and care about, your best friend, your sister, your brother, they want them to have a good experience when that inevitable healthcare crisis strikes. Learning about me and my work. Our website it's the Patients View Institute. The website is patientsviewinstitute.org. So it's gopvi.org. And we are sort of a connection point for others in this universe of like-minded people. So please reach out. You can reach out through the website. You can find us on Twitter @PatientVoices, @PatientVoices.